After a year of disastrous floods, the Murray has hit its highest peak in South Australia for half a century. Homes and businesses have been flooded downstream for hundreds of kilometres.
So this is the most water that we've seen come across the border into South Australia really since the 70s. We expect somewhere in the order of 3,500 to 4,000 properties to ultimately be inundated.
Adam Powell's Caravan Park depends on the river as a drawcard for tourists. But now his business at Paisley, northeast of Adelaide, has been completely submerged.
How do you feel seeing this?
From the initial saying we're going to get out of here to now, you're still in shock, you really are. It's trying to fathom what happened in such a short amount of time.
The Caravan Park is now closed indefinitely.
This is the main reception area where we come up to now. The shop's pretty much underwater here.
I see the telephone box.
Yeah, the telephone box is here. You have different feelings about what's happened, and plus you even have nightmares about the thing as well.
The damage is devastating not only for Adam but holiday makers who own private cabins and caravans in the park.
So how many cabins and caravans are there in here?
I'd say there'd be at least 25 in here, 30 that are still in here at the moment. The caravan is attached to the side of these annexes, and they've all been locked up, so it's actually trapped an air pocket inside the unit, and that's why they've lifted off the,
so
off the ground.
They're actually floating?
They're floating now.
Here we are in the ski shop on the day of the peak, and the water is up well over my knees and making a big mess.
About 1 hour downstream of Paisley, Kylie Rocco is assessing the floodwater damage to her Mannum Ski Shop.
It's really quite hard to believe that this was full of stuff 5 weeks ago.
7:30 first met Kylie in November after she was told her business wouldn't be protected by an emergency levy being built by the local council.
This shop means everything to me because it's my baby. I've invested a lot of time and effort into it.
Just over a month later, businesses behind the levy have stayed dry. Kylie, on the other hand, estimates she's lost about $300,000 in sales.
I don't like handouts, but we absolutely need help because we've been backed into a position and the timing could just not be worse.
Kylie's been frustrated to learn she's only eligible for a $20,000 government grant.
We received the first grant, but that will pay my rent for the next 4 or 5 months, and the rest has been paid back in my most recent tax instalment. I'd like to see everybody get looked after. I'd like it to be a simpler process, and I'd also like to see a little bit more of a case-by-case assessment happen.
The state and federal governments have allocated $190 million in funding to help flood-affected businesses and homeowners. But those with insurance, like Kylie, are limited in what they can apply for.
We have sought to make it as generous as possible, and I think most people understand where you can't double dip in terms of eligibility for insurance and then also getting access to government money.
Kylie's business will be shut for months. Out of work, her employee Gemma Gurr is currently relying on $389 a fortnight in youth allowance.
It's very stressful actually, not knowing what your next kind of move is or a timeline. Like, we don't really have a timeline, you know. My plan is to 100% come back to the ski shop.
It breaks my heart to see Gemma struggle. Like, I know she is. She'll never admit that she is.
The best thing we can do, of course, is get those businesses back on their feet as quickly as we can. It's going to take some time before we see the waters recede and then fully reveal all of the damage that has been imposed upon much of the infrastructure.
In Paisley, Adam Powell is still working out how he'll make ends meet over coming months. As he doesn't have flood insurance, he can apply for up to $60,000 in government assistance.
The cost of the rebuilding there, I can only save probably a minimum of $100,000. I may have to go back to work. I'm speaking to the employer that I used to work for, so they could be on the cards going back to work again.
But he is determined to reopen his caravan park, even though he knows that day is a long way away.
Who knows, it could be 12 months, 2 years it could be, before we fully rebuild.